Hi, I'm Cinnamon Cooney and I want to show you how to make this really fun scaredy hair dog with a bird that landed on his head. It's really easy, it's really fun, and anyone can do it, and it's practically no drawing. Let me show you the materials we're going to use. So it's just going to take some regular Crayola watercolors. I've got Crayola brushes, a pencil, a Sharpie pen, a straw, and a cup of water for you to make this. That's it. So I want you to grab all those things and come right back to your creative table and let's get started right now. Come on. Now the first thing that we've got to do on this really cool Pet Week project where we've got this dog with this funny bird sitting on his head is I've got to draw it in. Now I'm going to draw it in with a Sharpie so you can see it at home. But you draw it in very lightly with just a regular pencil, okay? So you do it with a regular pencil. I'm going to do it with a Sharpie so you can see. The first thing I want you to do is find the middle of your paper with your pencil and make a little dot. That's your breaks. Your dog's head isn't going to go any higher than that, okay? Come down here on the side about, oh gosh, like 3 inches up and make another little dot. That's going to be your starting spot. And I want you to draw up a hill. You're going to draw up a hill. Now at just a couple inches up, I want you to stop and go 3 fingers, make a dot and start again. And then you're going to go over the top of the hill, over the top of the hill. Don't press too hard. Draw real lightly with your pencil. And when you get to the same part on the hill that you did on this side, you can go ahead and stop again and make 3 fingers and another little dot down the hill and come down here. Now listen, if you drew the whole hill, don't worry about it. You don't have to erase. It's just pencil and we're going to paint over it. But I want to put some ears in there. So I come just a little bit above my hill and I make downward facing rounded triangles. Can you see how that's like a triangle? It faces down, but it's rounded. I'm going to do the same thing on this side to make nice, floppy, soft ears. Because dogs have floppy, soft ears, don't they? Don't you love how they feel? I love dogs' ears. Now I got to make a little face expression. And I'm going to make kind of small eyes that are close together. I make those by making 2 small circles that are right next to each other. But listen, you could make big eyes. You could make 1 big eye, 1 little eye. You could make a winky eye. That part isn't important. I just want to show you how we sketch him in. To make his doggy nose, I'm going to make a flat circle, like a squish circle. Then I'm going to come down a straight line down, just a couple inches, and I stop. And then I'm going to make a smile this direction and a smile this direction for his mouth. And I feel like he needs a funny little licky tongue, which is a little U that comes out from underneath his mouth. That wasn't that bad. Now, if you're doing a bird on top of his head, one thing you can do if you don't feel good at circles is you can put a cup above him and trace around it to get your circle. But just remember to draw real light with your pencil, right? Even though I'm drawing with a Sharpie, you're drawing with your pencil. Right? Make your circle. At the top, give him a little flappy wing because this little bird is surprised. Then I like to give him a little 3, 1, go around, make a teardrop, go around, make a teardrop, 3, feathered tail, little triangle off the front of his face, and a line to go back for your bird's mouth. And I'm going to give him a teeny tiny little eye looking down. And then I'm going to draw funny little legs, straight lines coming down with little feet. They go 1, 2, 3. Funny little feet that come down, go 1, 2, 3. That's all you've got to do to sketch your dog in. Wasn't that easy with the funny little bird? Try not to erase a bunch of times because it can damage the paper. Okay? And just remember, your dog should look like your dog and your bird should look like your bird. We're not clones, right? So we should have differences in our art, and you should always feel confident to trust your own imagination. Now I'm going to get my painting paper, which I just have my dog. We just drew pencil sketched in really, really lightly. I pencil sketched this in. I'm going to add the little wing and tail so that I can paint this in. Now I'm using watercolor paper. And the difference between watercolor paper and printer paper is that it's heavy and it doesn't wrinkle. But if you have printer paper or just a regular pad of paper, a trick you can do to help it not wrinkle is to tape it down at the top, at the sides, and at the bottom so that it doesn't wrinkle on you as bad. That will really help that. And I'll show you some pictures that I did on regular paper that still came out real good. But if you can, Mom and Dad, the one place it'd be great to upgrade for any kid art project is in the paper. However, I like Crayola paint. So I like to open my paint. I've got my half a cup of water. I like to fill my cups half full because they're less likely to spill. And I really, really like having this mister because I come in and I put in a little water in each of my paints. And this helps what called prime them. In other words, it makes them easier to paint with. Now I'm going to pick out a brush. I really like my brushes. I'm going to pick out a fun brush that I can use in this painting. This is a really fun brush. I like this orange color, and this is called a point. When brushes come to this type of finish, they're called a point. But if they're squares like this, they're called brights. So I'm going to get my brush wet, and I'm going to do something kind of interesting, guys. I'm going to get my paper a little bit wet. A little bit wet. And I think I want to paint a blue and green dog. That's crazy. You can paint them any color you want. So I'm going to put out my green paint. I have lots of greens to choose from, don't I? Lots and lots of greens to choose from. And I'm going to paint in. And then you know what I'm going to do? Every time I'm going to change color, I'm going to rinse out my brush and come get a different color. And look, can you see how where I put that new wet color to the old wet color, they bleed into each other? Isn't that interesting? I really like that effect. And no matter how long you've been painting, if you're painting watercolor, you're always going to have a lot of fun using that technique. So this is something fun that you can do any time. I'm holding my brush really comfortably between my fingers, a lot like you'd hold a pencil, or I like to call it the pincher. And that helps me have some control over what's happening. I try not to hold it from far back here, because if you hold your brush from really far back, it can make it harder to control what you're doing. So I like to have a lot of comfort when I'm painting. Do you like to have a lot of comfort when you're painting? I'm just grabbing a darker green. See that bleed into there? Isn't that interesting? I'm going to paint around my nose carefully using the point of my brush. This is just a regular Crayola brush, and I think that these are perfectly fine brushes for watercolors. I actually really like them. I'm going to get my bright green again. Come right there. Just having fun mixing up the colors. But now I feel like I want some blue. So I'm going to get this blue right here. And they're bleeding together. They're bleeding together. And that's pretty cool. I'm trying not to paint out my eyes. But listen, if you make a mistake, don't crumple up your paper and throw it away. Just finish and do another one. These fun animals are so much fun to do. It's just better for you to do 3 or 4 of them than try to do like one perfect one and then keep crumpling up your paper if it's not perfect. Art isn't supposed to be perfect. That's not what art's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be perfect either because you're perfect just the way you are. So maybe if you don't like these colors, maybe you'd paint them different colors. I don't know. That's up to you. I'm really liking these colors today. I wanted to have some exciting bright colors. I'm painting blue on this side. Okay. And I'm just enjoying how the paint goes on the paper. Isn't that sort of fun? You'll notice I didn't paint that ear and I didn't paint this ear because I might use a different color when I'm painting it. I'm going to get my dark green here and let those two colors bleed together. Bleeding together. Just letting them bleed together. That's the only time that bleeding is okay. When colors bleed together. I'm going to get some yellow. And when I go back and get my yellow, I want to make sure my brush is really rinsed out, or I'll get a lot of paint on it and it can kind of make it hard to get that yellow back, can't it? But you can always rinse your paint palette. This is just Crayola paint, so you can rinse it out. I like Crayola colors because they're so bright. They have a lot of brightness in them. And that's really what makes it fun. Now, if you're painting on printer paper, sometimes the bleeding can be a little harder to make happen and that paper can wrinkle. So just know that that's not you. That's just what the paper's doing. I'm going to get some of this indigo, this dark, dark purplish blue. And we'll put that right here. Right here. Just paint that right there. And it's okay that it's bleeding out a little bit into the surrounding colors. That's very typical watercolor paints. And you sometimes really want that effect, right? Sometimes you really want those two things to bleed together. And you want it to be a lot of fun. So that is a lot of fun, and I like how that's working. Now I'm going to paint my bird, and I'd like my bird to be red. So I'm going to take some of this bright orange and paint around his eye and at the top of him. I'm going to paint around his eye and at the top of him. Don't worry about having to have it be just exactly perfect. Sometimes you can see things in your head and they come out a little different on the paper, and that's okay. I didn't draw or paint like this when I was young. I painted and drew just like you. That's something my kids are always wondering because they're always like, I don't paint like you, and I feel very frustrated. But the truth is, I didn't paint like me until I painted a really long time. So don't put that pressure on yourself. There's enough tests and pressure in school as it is. You don't need to add any pressure during your art time. Right? That's your time. Where you get to trust your ideas and your imagination. And you know what else? You get to be in charge on this paper. And if your mom's getting a little worried when she's painting along too, you tell her that she's in charge on her paper. This is just art time. Try not to take it so seriously. I'm going to get some just yellow, and I'm going to paint the beak. Just some yellow, because I feel like I like yellow bird beaks, right? Now, one fun thing is I'm going to make the nose brown. I like making the nose brown. I'm not going to paint the eyes. I'm going to leave those white. And it's okay if the nose bleeds a little bit into the color around it. And I'm going to get this bright kind of fuchsia, and I'm going to paint this tongue. Because I want him to have a lickety pink tongue. He's very excited to have a bird having landed on his head. That's thrilling to him. So he's really excited about that. Look at that. We're going to add that little bit of color. Isn't that fun how watercolor does that? Where it bleeds through and it makes these beautiful patterns. Now rinse your brush. If your water's very, very dirty, John? Hey. If your water's very, very dirty, be sure and go get new water now. This next part is my favorite part, okay? I want you to grab a straw. I cut my straws down a little shorter so I could have control of them. It's just a regular drinking straw. And you're going to go back where you painted colors, and you're going to paint those same colors again, but make them a little bit wet so you can blow them with the straw. That way you can make the dog have crazy hair. That's my favorite part of this painting is the crazy hair. All right, let's make some crazy hair. So I'm using a lot of water right here. Now something you might not know is sometimes yellow and purple when they mix together don't make the nicest color. It's not like when yellow and blue get together and make green. Yellow and purple kind of make a zombie color, but that's okay because sometimes that can be nice. And you might notice that where the two colors are bleeding. So I put a lot of water and a lot of yellow, and hopefully you can catch this on camera. That's some crazy hair, and some of his crazy hair even got up on my bird. How was that? It can make you a little bit winded, but I don't want you to be worried about it. You hang in there. I'm going to get a little green, and it's kind of fun to try to remember what color did I paint that right there, and try to remember that color on your palette so you can put it back, because the blowing part is so fun. Some tricks to remember when you're blowing is that you want to be a little bit close to the paper so the air can really push the paint around. So it's like we're using air as a paintbrush, isn't it? That's an interesting technique. I really like this. We're going to do a few projects with this technique because I think it's a lot of fun. All right, here we go again. Crazy hair. Oh, this dog is having some crazy hair. I'm going to put some, oh, is that the right purple? Maybe. Oh, maybe it was this purple. Yeah, it was. See, I was having to remember the color I used. That's okay. I didn't get worried about the mistake. Now, watercolor is a clear see-through color. So if you make a mistake, you can't really necessarily just paint over and over and over it and paint it out like I sometimes do with acrylic paint. With watercolor, it's like a glaze or glass. It's see-through. So sometimes you just kind of got to be okay with what you see. Oh, I really like that. Now, I'm going to add this green right here. That's the last bit of splatter. That's the last bit of splatter that I have. I'm excited to see that be done. Whoa! What do you think of that? That looks pretty cool. Now the next part is we're going to let this dry all the way because watercolor paint really ruins pens. So if you get impatient and you don't let it dry, then that paint is going to gum up your pen. So definitely let it dry all the way. Let's let this dry, and I'll meet you right here when it's dry. Like, go have a snack or take a stretch, because it's important to stretch when you're doing art. And come right back as soon as it's dry, because I really want to see this project finished. I want you to share it with me with your mom or dad or grandparents' permission on Facebook. I'd love to see the artwork you're doing, or Instagram, wherever you're allowed to. But with their permission, always check with them first. Let's dry our art. Okay, my painting is all dry. Is yours all dry? Be sure and look at it and see if any parts look shiny or reflective, because that might mean it's still wet. But if you're really sure that it's dry, I have a fine point Sharpie right here. I always like to put my caps on the back so I don't lose them. I'm going to come, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trace over the area around my bird's eye. And I'm going to make a nice dark pupil looking down. And then I'm going to just trace the beak. But not all around him. Up here, I'm going to add just a little bit of line to the wing. But again, not all around him. And I'm going to come and outline his tail. But I'm not going to draw all around him. Then I'm going to take his little feet that were down on my scaredy dog. And I'm going to make 1, 2, 3 lines again. I might even still be able to see my pencil. That's pretty good. Then I'm going to help bring these ears defined back. So I'm going to trace very carefully the outline. Okay, and realize you don't have to be perfect. You can make a lot of these. You could try a bunch of different colors. You could send them to your grandparents. You can send them to your mom and dad, or give them to your brother or sister or your best friend. So you have lots of opportunity to practice. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. Now I'm going to put my eyes up here. Oh, I like that. I'm going to trace around the nose. I'm going to follow that straight line down and into the smile. And then I'm going to trace around his lappy tongue like that and make a line down the middle. Now the last most important thing that you've got to do, that I want you to do, is sign it. Artists sign their artwork. Now sometimes in fine art, some artists don't sign their artwork anymore, but I think you should still sign it. And I think you might even want to write the year. Now if you have to, you can ask the grown-up who's with you what the year is, and ask them to sign theirs too, because I really think they should be painting with you. All right, let's sign our artwork. I'm going to do this right here in the lower right corner. I'm going to sign my artwork. And I'm going to add the last two numbers of the year. So always know when I did that. That way your mom or dad or grandma or grandpa will always know when you did it, or your friend. You should always give your artwork to people that you care about. I definitely want to see it online. We might even show it sometimes at the end of the show. I really want to thank you for being creative with me. And if you have more art you want to do, check the iCard and the description below for links to more projects that you might really like to do. I want to see you here being creative really soon, okay? You keep being arty, and you color in your own colors, and don't worry about being inside the lines. I'll see you really soon. Bye-bye. Come join us live Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 11 a.m. Central, or enjoy one of the hundreds of paintings available on replay anytime.